Move to quick picks.
Yeah, let's do this. This is back with a bang this year. Will O'Callaghan, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Owen. Morning, Adrian. How are you getting on?
Well.
Looking forward to trailing me again in the rankings this year, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. For people new to this slot, Will O'Callaghan comes on OTB AM every Friday morning and tells us exactly what is going to happen in that weekend's championship action, while myself and Adrian flail around miserably. Tommy Rooney is also involved in the predictions, but he's on a romantic getaway at the moment.
Right.
So he has texted in his picks. He has literally phoned it in. Let's get our first few up on screen to see what people are going for. I know that there's a few Maverick picks coming up over the next little while. So let's have a look at what's up first, which is the football. So we're going to the Leinster Football Championship, and I talk about Maverick picks. Tommy Rooney is picking Louth to beat Offaly. Myself, Adrian, Will, all going for Offaly to beat Louth. This is the clash of Mahon against Hart. Why is Tommy Rooney wrong, Will?
Look, we should have a good gauge, Owen, when it comes to all of this, because this is the first time that we've ever had league form that's meaningful so close to championship with a very quick turnaround. But as Derek McGrath writes in the Irish Examiner this morning, you know, it's different stuff when it gets to the championship itself. The argument, I guess, for Louth would be that Offaly played very poorly for most of the game against Derry last week in the Division 3 final. John Mahon and his team felt they needed a day out in Croke Park, and this was an opportunity to play for a piece of silverware and get that big game occasion. And they came up really flat. And it's for Offaly, it's about coming round mentally, because they played really good football, you know, topped their group in the Southern Division of Division 3, and then played very well against Fermanagh in the effective promotion playoff, the semi-final. So, like, Offaly have a lot of form going into this. Louth have got promotion up to Division 3 for next year too. But I'm guessing that Tommy is guessing that Mickey Hart has got some kind of master strategy to overcome Offaly this coming weekend. I still fancy Offaly to win, but I'm probably a bit more nervy about the result than I would have been at 7 o'clock last Saturday when things felt pretty glum coming out of Croke Park. But I still think Offaly have got the better team overall and have been playing better this season and should come through it realistically.
Yeah, I think so too. We're all going for Longford in the Carlow versus Longford matchup this weekend, so no pressure there. Meanwhile, myself and yourself, Will, are both going for Wicklow to beat Wexford. Tommy is with us this time, but Adrian Barry, why have you gone for Wexford?
Well, I think that we have to look at some of those 50-50 games, and I do think that the point that Will makes there about Offaly and Louth particularly, there's loads of momentum with both of them, and it definitely is one of the games that I could see going either way. And I feel similarly about Wexford Wicklow, and I think that I knew that you schmucks were all going to go with the obvious pick, so I just thought there is an opportunity earlier to deliver a body blow to the three by going slightly against the grain. I know obviously Wicklow beat them last year. Wexford nabbed Sligo, I think, in the Division 4, was the Shield final last weekend. That's in their favour, obviously. I think it's tight. I think it's 60-40 probably against the way I'm going. The winner plays Dublin as well, by the way, and it's Louth and Offaly, I think, are on the same side of the draw. Well, if I'm right, all of these conversations are so moot ultimately.
Louth and Offaly have Kildare, depending on who wins. I'm totally against Adrian here, by the way. Wicklow are actually my lock of the weekend. I saw Wicklow a few times in the Southern Division in Division 3 because they were playing against Offaly. I was really impressed. I wasn't surprised when they beat Cavan a couple of weeks ago to stay in Division 3. Yeah. They're coming off the back of a huge result. I think if there's any one result that's going to happen this weekend, and this clip will be brought up to hurt me if Wexford win, I think Wicklow will beat Wexford this weekend.
They're the trending team in Leinster, really. I know, like, Offaly have had a very good spring. No, like over the last couple of years, Will. I mean,
from the base they're coming from.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I mean exactly that. From the base they're coming from. Obviously, last year in Division 4 they were really impressive. I mean, it's just very hard to get a read on any of these teams when the Leinster Championship, as you say, Adrian, will always end in defeat at one stage or another. But the progress signs are good, it seems. So, like, I'd be kind of with you on that as well. So it's more of a lock than Longford over Carlow, even though we're all unanimous on Longford, Will.
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, Longford had a really good result against Tipperary a couple of weeks ago, so they're coming in with massive momentum into the championship itself. But I just think Wicklow are a really solid team. I think I'd even fancy Wicklow if Wicklow were playing Longford this weekend. I think Wicklow have been really good. That's maybe me setting them up for a horrible fall, but I think they'll definitely have too much for Wexford.
Those two teams
different for a while.
Two of the worst teams in the country. Carlow and Longford.
I think that's harsh on Longford, to be honest.
I think they're in the middle third of the country.
I mean, geographically, yes, and then every other way, Longford particularly. They're brutal. I mean, they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Adrian's broadside on the Leinster Championship just is something we're going to have to get used to here every single week.
Well, it's look, there's a lot of the phony war about it. Westmeath will probably meet in the other. That might be the game of the Leinster Championship actually.
Meath,
there you go, Adrian, writing off leash straight away.
100%, yeah. I think, look at you know yourself, I think Westmeath were so unlucky over the course of the league. I always go back to it, the grain of rice could have easily gone the other way in all 3 games. They could have ended up getting promoted.
They could have had a plate of rice.
They could have had a plate of rice on. But I mean, I know it didn't, and so you look like a mug, but I'm just saying that I think actually Westmeath are not that far off it.
I think Westmeath are a good side as well, in fairness, and I think they were unlucky to lose that to Cork a couple of weeks ago. So we're moving on to the football in Munster, and there are 2 unanimous picks here for anybody listening to us on the OTB Sports app. Kerry against Clare, we're all going for Kerry. Limerick against Waterford, we're all going for Limerick, which is probably a sign of where Limerick are at, that nobody is a little bit shaky over that, but probably more realistically a sign of where Waterford still are at, that they really can't see them beating Limerick. So any nerves at all here, Will, about tipping Kerry? And will we put points on it? How big do you think the Kerry win will be?
The Kerry result probably won't be by a huge scoreline. I mean, Clare have had a terrific year and only narrowly missed out and gone up to Division 1 football, and were unlucky that they got Mayo in terms of their game for the promotion playoff. But Clare have had a solid year. You know, they were good in the second flight the season before too. They've kind of been upperly mobile in the last few years, and it feels a matter of time before they get up to Division 1 with the way that they've been playing. So, it's not a gimme in any way for Kerry going into the weekend, but you would expect the Kerry are going to be so driven from last season, and where they'll feel that they left the Munster Championship behind them. They should have been there contesting the All-Ireland Championship with Dublin at the end of the year, and they weren't. And I would imagine that the pain of that means there's no chance of any kind of complacency going into their first fixture this weekend. Clare supporters have every reason to be optimistic going down there this weekend. You know, you take the factor of the crowd out because there's only going to be a couple of hundred people there. I think Clare will put in a very credible performance, but I think Kerry have improved on last year. They've got a better balance about their team. Pat Spillane was saying yesterday the forward line looks like it's actually motoring as a unit now too. I fancy Kerry to go deep in the championship, and if that's going to happen, they have to beat Clare this weekend. So I think they're going to win tomorrow evening, yeah.
I think Clare supporters have every reason to be unbelievably frustrated with the championship structure this year, because this is a team that's ready to make its mark on the Super 8s and actually get that far. I don't think they'll get out of Clarny with the good results.
What's the difference?
What do you mean? What's the point difference? Again, Will, you put your neck on the line earlier on saying lock of the week. There's a reason why the bookies have this down as a 12-point win. I think Kerry will come close to a big win, but we won't be sitting there after 50 minutes saying, oh, well, they've hammered them out the gate. It'll be something that just opens up in the latter stages, because we've seen it against Tyrone, we've seen it against Galway. This Kerry team has a habit of absolutely savaging a team in the course of a few minutes. And what's interesting is that both of those games happened in Kerry. I know there's no crowds, Will, and Adrian, I'm not sure what you think, though. I do think that home comforts do matter somewhat. Is there a familiarity with the dressing rooms, with the fact that lads are driving themselves to games and they're only over the road from Clarny? I think that this is having an impact, and I think in Cusack Park there is not a hope in hell I would be saying that Kerry stand a chance of winning this game by double figures. But at home, I do think they can rack up a big win. Again, I'm putting myself in a terrible position by saying that.
Well, I'm glad you made that last point, because I think we should just give an advisory to our viewers that we seem to be talking Clare up, a team that have beaten Laois and Kildare, the mighty Laois and the mighty Kildare, over the last few months. That's a recommendation of nothing against a team who are ultimately, like Will said, I would go way further than deep into the championship. There's a lot of people saying that they're going to beat Dublin this year. I think they're on a different level. 12 points is about right, I think. I was going to say sort of 10 or 11, but I'd easily go with 12, and I think it will be done. I think that the likes of Clifford, obviously very happy leading from the front, and tends to take a lot of focus off a lot of the players, unbelievable players that are around him. And there is, Dermot Connolly said it after week 1 of the league, that there's something different about Kerry this year, and I'm going to go with that. And I think that I think 10 or 12 points easily, and loads of time to switch over to whatever the other game that I said earlier on that's happening in the Euros was.
Yeah, Italy-Austria, isn't it? Right, okay, so the Connacht and Ulster Football Championships then. Sligo against Mayo, Down versus Donegal. Surprise, no surprises here. Everybody's gone for Mayo and everybody's gone for Donegal. On Mayo, it was interesting, kind of going through this team that they announced yesterday. It seemed that everybody had retired over the course of the winter, and everybody who didn't retire got injured over the course of the league. And they still managed to name 10 of the team that started against Dublin in the All-Ireland final last year. missing Cillian O'Connor for me rules out their opportunity of actually beating Dublin this year, I feel. But I think we're maybe underrating what Mayo are building here on some level. Like 3 of the Young Player of the Year nominees last year. Remarkable consistency in team selection given they've been ravaged by retirements and injuries, as I say. And I think that we're going to see a couple of really impressive showings from Mayo in this year's Connacht Championship.
Yeah, realistically, that's what we should see. I mean, like James Horn, for all the players they've lost, and like they've lost a handful of those who've been involved in this golden generation who've come up short in a couple of All-Ireland finals. Like they were able to blood 3 players last year on with championship debuts. They all go on to get All-Star nominations, which is helped by getting to an All-Ireland final. But the next generation of Mayo players from some good underage teams are now starting to come through. Those players have stepped away, have left space into the team. The issue would be that Cillian O'Connor's scoring dependency last year, and also having to go into the championship now, trying to work out who their free taker is going to be, given that Cillian O'Connor was always the automatic option for that, causes a few questions going in. But at least it's not a case of having drawn Galway or Roscommon in the first round. Like they should have time to have a look at things, tinker around a bit, and beat Sligo at Markovich Park. They should come through at a canter tomorrow afternoon, you would imagine. And they're on a great side of the draw because they've got Leitrim then in the semi-final at home, to then have themselves warmed up for playing Roscommon or Galway in the Connacht final. So they should be able to ease their way into it. But yeah, I mean, the concerns about not having Cillian O'Connor, they're huge. Like he scored, 550, I think, last winter. That's a huge amount to take out of any team.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous tally he racked up. So everybody's going for Mayo there, everybody's going for Donegal there.
By the way, just one on that, like whatever it was, 9 points in the Ireland final. Are they going to put, what's the solution to it? Do they put Aidan O'Shea up? What's the... Like, that'll be the most interesting thing, I think, from the Sligo game, getting some sort of a sense of how they cope post-Cillian.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, those first 15 minutes, to see how they set up. I want to move on to the hurling, because there's some nice disagreements happening here. Dublin against Antrim. I'm going for Dublin, Adrian's going for Dublin, Will, you're going for Dublin. But can you explain why Tommy, on his romantic getaway, has texted me to say Antrim are going to beat Dublin? Why has he gone for this, Will? Has he got carried away with the league?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Antrim have to come with the health warning that they were in Group 1B as opposed to Group 1A, which was a slightly easier group. But Antrim were really impressive in a few of those games. Yeah, they beat Clare in the first round, which I'd imagine is a big part of Tommy's thinking here, which was a huge result for them. They beat Laois in the kind of phony war of the last round of games, and they got a very credible draw against Wexford. Hurled reasonably well against Kilkenny, so they were competitive pretty much across their fixtures. Still, it's the case of them, with the exception of the Clare game, probably performing to par outside of that. This one has a huge importance on it as well, because quite aside from it being a route into a semi-final in Leinster, the losers of this game will play in a qualifier, which doubles up as a relegation playoff. So your year can be pretty much wrecked if you were to lose here, albeit whoever doesn't come through will probably expect to beat Laois, giving away my pick for Laois against Wexford when it comes to that relegation playoff. I think Dublin, though, like, you just about give them the nod in this one. I think, given the way that the two teams have hurled so far this year, like Dublin have gone about their business really well in Group 1B2. You know, they won the games that they needed to stay up. It's a bit of a coin toss, but you would imagine that Dublin's slightly superior panel will see them come through. But this is one of the closest games of the weekend. Like, don't be surprised at all if Antrim pull a small upset, because it would only be a small upset if they were to win. Yeah,
and that's why Tommy's gone for them. The rest of us gone for Dublin. We're all going for Wexford to beat Laois in that one, and then we are split down the middle on Waterford against Clare. Myself and yourself, Will, going for Waterford. Tommy's gone for Clare, and Adrian, you've gone for Clare.
Yeah, I think I backed the wrong team here is what's happened. I look at, I mean, am I going to try and make a case with them? No, I'm not sure. I mean, Shane O'Donnell is out, right? Did I read that during the week? Yeah, which is probably not a great recommendation. It is definitely one of the tightest games, I think, over the weekend. Waterford, their position last year was probably not a fair reflection of actually where they're at, but even that might be enough to get past Clare this weekend. There's some really good previews of it actually in some of the papers this morning about the physicality of it, and that it's not necessarily one of the biggest traditional rivalries, but actually in the modern day will be a belter. And I'm not going to be surprised if Clare win it. Tommy's going for it because he couldn't set foot outside the door if he didn't go that direction. And listen, I'm all up for causing a bit of mischief, so I'm all in too.
Yeah, no worries in this one, Will.
Yeah, look, Waterford were really impressive in the league. They finished in second place in Group 1A. They got 3 wins from their 5 games. they've shown again that they've got loads of firepower in terms of their scoring up front, which I think will prove the difference at Semple Stadium on Sunday afternoon. I did back Clare to beat them in the championship last year and was proven totally wrong when Waterford came through with a very impressive performance, albeit Tony Kelly was far from 100% fit that day. But, you know, I think Waterford will back up the fact that they got to an All-Ireland final last year. I don't think they'll get to an All-Ireland final again, but I do expect them to progress and get through to the semi-finals in Munster, and I think they'll just have too much for Clare this weekend. Nice
one. Well, enjoy the weekend's action, Will, and we will lock in Wicklow as your lock of the week. You've heard it here first.
Thanks, lads.
They're your quick picks for this week.